Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show. College football season finally done, and we'll wrap up that. We got a huge show today, as always, or almost always. I'm sitting here with my guy, Mr. Anthony Schlegel. Excited for this. Got the NFL playoffs going along. College football finally finished up. A lot of news with the portal guys returning to Ohio State. We're going to get to your questions as well in our tailgate talk segment, which is always our favorite part of the show. We want to start out they had the season-ending ranking Schlegs. Ohio State is at 10, lowest final ranking since 2013, a stat that you were a part of there. We lost to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game, and then lost to Clemson, I believe.
31-0.
Yeah. No, that wasn't the 31-0 game.
Was it not?
That was
I can't even remember.
No, that was the one with Braxton playing. He hurt his shoulder, at the end. It was struggling a little bit, but that was a much closer game. It ended up being maybe a 10-point game at the end, but losing both of their games. First time outside the top six since 2013 as well. And, you lose to Michigan by a score. The Missouri Cotton Bowl does not look good. So not a ton of great stuff there, but there is a lot of good news with Ohio State that we're going to get into. We're going to dive on in. There's been some coaching changes. There are going to be some more. We'll dive into that potentially on how that's going to look. But first, Schlegs, one of our guys, former teammate, Mr. AJ Hawk, a linebacker mate of ours, turned 40 on January 6th. Big Insurrection Day. I always knew AJ was an insurrectionist deep down, and celebrating his birthday. We had a surprise party for him this last weekend because, during the college football playoff, he had to go out there with McAfee to the Rose Bowl and their national championship game. So didn't know if he'd be able to get back in time. So his lovely wife, Laura, planned it this week. Had a bunch of his boys in town, the whole McAfee crew, Aaron Rodgers, some other guys he played with. Had a really good time downtown Columbus there. And Schlegs, I mean, did you enjoy all of the festivities, catching up with some of our old friends, teammates, and everything else?
I'm surprised you didn't put libations in there, Bob, because you always
lots of those
about celebrating. But listen, it was a great time. I mean, and the one thing I told him, I was like, "Hey, man, you're loved." I mean, a lot of people came from a lot of different places to share in this time with you. 40-something, that's special. But you know what? Like, he's like fine wine. It's amazing. You look at the picture that was us on the USA Today and where we are now. We all look dramatically better. So that's good. That's a testament to also taking care of your bodies, which we all do. But it was a great time. Anytime we get together like that, Bob, the stories flow, the libations flow, and it's just a great time. And we're sitting there talking to choppers outside, smoking a cigar, and those kind of stories just go to a whole different level. And it was just good to see all of the other areas and people that AJ impacts on a daily basis in his lives, from Pat McAfee and Aaron, and then here in Columbus, Ohio, and then Doug came down, and so anyways, it was a great time. Laura's amazing, and we even walked away with a parting gift, which I'm like, I brought the gift. You and I actually shared in the gifting of our gifts, which were amazing. I wish I would have seen him open them, but he's not that type of guy. But then we walked away with a gift, which was, I was like, I'm not opening it right here in the car. I'm going to wait till I get to the house. And then I opened it up. I was like, Dad, gummit, this is fantastic.
Oh yeah, got the little glasses, little short glasses there, Crystal Woodford Reserve with it, little cigar inside. I mean, and I think hardly anyone took them. They had a whole stack of them. And we were one of the last.
Hey, I'll go back.
That's why I want to tell Laura, like, hey, what are we doing with the rest of those? I'll come and get some more. Why not? I barely remember getting in the car. It was a great time. Everybody really enjoyed it. Guys, their wives are all down there hanging out. So we got AJ, a little peek behind the curtain here. Got AJ a sweet decanter. He'll drink some bourbon, a little whiskey from time to time. Big Crown guy as well. And so Schleg's got him a bottle of Eagle Rare, fantastic. And then I paired in my part of the gift was a nice decanter to be able to put that bourbon in there. And it may have been phallic shaped. And then it also maybe came with two glasses that were like balls that you could drink out of. That, and then also AJ's a big golfer. Schleg's huge golfer. He's got a what they refer to as a Peter putter, a putter that is also phallic shaped. And so we got him a glove that would represent some of the things that would kind of play in on that line of thinking. It's called a shocker glove, and it's got some different colors.
It's good for the shock absorption. when
Yeah.
you're swinging the golf club, right? Because
Well,
I
AJ
mean, with
swings out of his
technology,
shoes.
he does.
Yeah,
So you need that extra protection, when
absolutely.
you're, so.
So we got that. So it'll be fun. I had a friend text me. He's like, "Hey, what did AJ think of the gifts?" I'm like, "He hasn't texted me yet, so I don't know if he's opened them yet. I don't want to like push ahead too far and be like, "Hey, open our stuff," just to kind of see what's up. But it was a great time, great conversations. Our guy Laurinaitis was
Oh,
down there.
James,
Yeah, good. James looking good as well. He's got that
pay that
strong.
man. Let's go. Get out there and recruit.
Yeah,
Give him a
he's got that
staff.
strong beard and the bald head.
Oh,
He,
he
he kind of
did.
has a real terrorist look going on right now, Schlegs.
I don't know about that, but he looked good.
Well, like maybe he's some sort of like co-op, like secret military dude. Got like that sweet long beard. But he's looking good, looking to be in really good shape. His lovely wife Michelle was down there as well. Uh, Fantastic. So it was a really good time. And like you said, getting together. He was the last of us to turn 40. You turned 40 like 7 or 8 years ago.
No doubt.
So it's been a number of years. James will be 40 here before too long. I turned 40 in August. So it's all pushing through, but there's obviously a lot of great things when that stuff happens. And like I said, you get overserved, you tell a lot of great stories, and you feel like you're 21 again, even though you are 40 years old. So, with that, so as we were looking at, the linebackers, and we're going to get into, some of the questions and everything else. Nick Saban's retirement, which is going to be big. But, Ohio State, with everything that's kind of happened and the lowest ranking they had coming out of the season,
Yeah.
how does that hit you going into this 2024 offseason?
You better get to work. That's what I mean. You go back, and I like it's the fact that I like numbers, and I like the fact that this was the last time since 2013. And everybody out there, remember what happened in 2014, won a natty. So then there's some things that we're going to talk about later that builds upon that, right? To be able to set yourself up for that opportunity. But when I go back through and I look at kind of the rundown of I'll just give you some stats here. Third down third down on offense, we're 31st in the country. Red zone offense, 57th, passing 30th, rushing 87 sacks allowed, 45th, total offense 47th, defense really good, pretty much, right? And I mean, there's
Yep.
a lot of great numbers, right? So defense, guess what, did really well. Offense did not. And then, but you go back and you turn the page, and that's the thing. You just had a national championship. I believe they're starting Tuesday, and you turn the page and you're already into 24. So let's freaking go. Let's build upon what we have. We got a lot of guys coming back. We'll talk more about it, but 24 is here. It's a completely different team. Like, there's guys that have gone. A lot of guys are coming back, but still it's a different team. New roles have to be established, even for the guys that are coming back. It's like, how can I take and move that needle just one step more? Every single day I'm chasing that 1%. Right? I'm filling the mag and I'm emptying the mag on a daily basis. That's what it has to be about in 24.
It is. And like you said, the roles are always going to change because the dynamics are going to change. No team is going to
100%.
be static from one year
Yes.
to the next. Guys get better. Even if it's just a couple guys leave, other roles expand. Guys expand their skill set and are able to kind of take on more. And you see the offenses and defenses begin to sculpt themselves around maybe some of the different strengths and weaknesses of the team in that given year. So we'll get into all that. Coming up next, we're going to get into a little bit of the national title game, what Michigan's up to, how that looked, how that felt, Schlegs, how that hit you on last Monday night, because it probably stung a little bit, knowing how close you were. So we'll dive into that next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and covered a lot of ground there with AJ Hawk and his birthday party. But there was a game that AJ and Pat were both at, the national championship megacast, Michigan defeating Washington to claim their first national title since 1997, 34-13. Washington never really felt like they could get off the ground, and Michigan had a lot of pressure. They were able to run the ball pretty well, but there was especially early on, but there was a period in the middle of that game, Schlegs, where it felt like Washington had an opportunity to get back in it in the second and third quarter when their defense was playing well, just couldn't ultimately get over the top. And Michael Penix just seemed off. And some of that, believe me, so a lot of that was the pressure that Michigan was providing. So I'm not trying to diminish what they did, but in the same sense, I've watched Michael Penix Jr. be under pressure and everything else going on and couldn't necessarily execute the way that I'd seen him execute in the past.
Yeah, I mean that game we talked about it the week before. It was their O line versus their D line. It was affect Penix. It was the ability to run the football and the way that Michigan ran the football and having a couple of those huge runs. I mean, Edwards for everything that he's been through and not really getting the carries that he did and being able to rush for 104, and he had that real long one. And then Corum, it came to up front. I mean, and when you look at even what we talked about in the last segment of Ohio State rushing the football, 87th in the country, and then stopping the run, I think they were 27th. Like it always comes down to running in the football and stopping the run. Like that's just what it is. That's college football. And we said last week they have to be able to own the time of possession, which they did in this. Penix had 2 interceptions. One that was, returned 81 yards that set Michigan up. And in that type of game, in that type of environment, when they score and then something happens and they go right back down there and score again, and then you're not able to capitalize and get some points on the board next.
You mean answer
really
the bell, Schlegs?
You got to answer the bell, and it really starts to defeat you. And Michigan did everything that they needed to do. They actually cleaned up from the Alabama game, the special team stuff, and they didn't turn the ball over. So, but they won up front, and that's what you see. Michigan was dominant up front this year, and they came out with the win.
Does it hurt anymore? Like, because I watched that game, I'm like, man, you're handful of plays away. You could make the argument if Kyle throws
5
a
or
little
6,
early,
yeah.
if there's a little more better protection, if the defense maybe could get a stop, if the front seven maybe played against Michigan like they did against Missouri for about 48 to 50 minutes, you felt like maybe you would have got to stop earlier in that final drive and it wouldn't have led to the field goal and bled so much time. And as I see that, it's like, man, I think that means that you're close, but does it make you feel any better? Because you saw that and I'm like, gosh, Bama and Ohio State looked about the same against Michigan. It's a play here, a play there. They beat Washington. I mean, this team I feel like is really close, but I don't know if that really gives you any solace as to be able to go to sleep at night going into the offseason because there's still going to be a lot of work to do.
Well, I mean, you're always chasing that 1%. When you're at the level of Ohio State, it's just like this. It's one play that goes your way or not that you're in there. When talent equated, it always goes back to the fundamentals of the game of football. That's a fact. And you go back and you look and you're on the road at Michigan when it's hard to beat them there. I mean, it's just a fact. And it's a different Michigan team. And they have 44 seniors. You had the COVID year. They play without hesitation. And I would say this too, sometimes up front, especially defensively. We talked about it, Bob. You see some hesitation from the back end, but that's because of the D line and like, where's my fit? And there's certain things, and the same thing with the offensive line. But when you just watch Michigan play, there's not a lot of gray, there's not a lot of hesitation, and they're able to just cut loose and play fast. Does it go back to where it hurts or whatever? It just stings a little bit knowing that you're that close. But because you're that close, you got to get even in the weeds deeper so that you can figure out how do you get that 1% to go be the national champion. That's what it boils down to.
And you look at Michigan and how they were comprised. They had a lot of guys come back. Yep. They had the unfinished business. And we're going to get into the Buckeye roster and how that ultimately looks as well.
Yep.
But I want to say they had some, 38, 40 seniors. Whenever you have J.J. McCarthy, who's a multi-year starter at quarterback, like a lot of those guys are going to be leaving and be on their way out, including possibly Jim Harbaugh with all these NFL openings. I would anticipate he'll be offered an NFL job. But those guys all came back. And you look at Washington, very veteran team. They've got a 6-year starting quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. They had a lot of guys come back. Now you have Roma Dunze and some other, highly elite skill position players. But the reality is you want to get old in college sports and you want to have, you have young, talented guys and go out there and make plays. But veteran pieces are immensely critical. And those are the guys that when things don't necessarily go your way in a game, that they're able to, hit that hard break and redirect and get things back on track. That they can do that during the season. You can do it during a game. You can do it during a series because experience gives you that ability. And also, it's funny, I've talked, to some of the coaches about this. When you have a veteran team, you're not as susceptible, Schlegs, to those emotional swings.
Facts.
Because as you get older, you become more mature, hopefully. And I've tried to get there a little bit.
You're coming along.
Work in progress. Always, by the way. Uh, but you're able to handle and regulate your emotions better. You're not the 2-year-old, obviously, throwing a temper tantrum in the grocery store, but as an 18, 20-year-old, like you're overwhelmed sometimes when, you have a miss a tackle, you drop a ball, it's a pick six or something. Like everybody's like, oh, and it's just the weight of it's there. As you get older, you realize like things happen.
Yeah.
Bad stuff happen. I try to teach this to my kids. The play, like crap is going to happen out there. I can't tell you what it is, but I know it's there. So prepare your mind, like callous your mind to the fact that this isn't going to be easy. You don't just roll out there and go win high level sporting contests. Like that's not how it works. You have to grind and you do all this work and you can work as hard as you want, but you're still not promised an outcome. You're not promised success. And you have to think that, dude, along the way, Schlegs, there's going to be a lot of potholes. There's going to be a lot of bad things that are going to happen. And can you push through that? Are you able to kind of grab that opportunity and be like, hey, you know what? We just absorbed this blow. Boom. Let's go back out there. You talked about it. The answering of the bell. They did something good. Now it's our turn. You look at your other side of the ball, whether it's defense or offense. Hey, we got you guys. We'll take care of it. Don't worry. You get yourself right, and we'll go do this together. And that's how you're able to build these teams out of this continuity and this passion ultimately together. But to callous your mind and to prepare yourself to say this game's gonna be hard. Like there's gonna be ebbs and flows. And anybody who, when you're young, I think you always see stuff happening. Oh yeah, look at this. It's like the movies. They go there, this play happens, that play, and all just kind of works out. Well, you know what? The reason that it works out is because you make it work out. And you can't be overcome by some of those negative plays. And that is what experience gives you. And so we're gonna dive in next.
Let's do it.
To the Buckeyes that are going to be returning. What is this roster going to look like next year? Because this is something that I feel like there's a ton of momentum behind it. And we're going to dive in and get you the answers of what this all means. And is the culture in a good spot? Because I think you're going to like where it's going. That's next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. And this is exciting, Schlegs, because I love talking about good things, the positivity. The Buckeye season obviously didn't end on a high note, but there's been a ton of positive momentum since then. And there were a number of players that you thought would be potentially leaving this team to maybe go to the NFL. And you saw a bunch of guys get in the portal earlier, and you looked like, okay, outside of Chip Trainum, that was one of those ones that was kind of shocking. Julian Fleming gets in, but you feel pretty deep in the receiver room. And, would he been any more than probably the third receiver again? Probably not. And he's going to Penn State, play against him. Good for him. He's a Pennsylvania kid. And, was one of the, highest recruited guys in the nation, but good for him. And you wish those guys obviously the best moving forward. But you worry about, what's on this team. When it started, Cody Simon, he could have had a fifth year COVID year. He decides to come back. All right. That helps the linebacker situation. Cody played a lot of ball this year. You feel pretty good about that. And you start looking around. It's like, okay, then Donovan Jackson coming back, offensive lineman, boom, you feel good. Starting to solidify some of the guard position. Get that fired up. Then all of a sudden you look around, Lathan Ransom, who got hurt, who, by the way, I think if he's healthy all season long, he's a great tackler. He's not the most elite, explosive athlete, crazy athlete you're going to find in the back end, but he's a hell of a football player. And he's smart. He gets in good position. He's a great tackler. I think you beat team up north if he's playing. He's coming back, so he can help direct the back end. You get Jordan Hancock.
Yep. Old Hancock.
Coming back, which is big because he can play that slot corner for you. He can probably play some safety. You can do a lot of things, give you a lot of versatility. Then all of a sudden you get Denzel Burt coming back. Now all of a sudden you got three corners. Boom, all there. Your safety returning. Fantastic. Jack Sawyer, he's getting on the train. He's coming back. See Emeka Ibuka, he's coming back. And then all of a sudden Travion Henderson comes back and you're thinking, wow, like you, and I'm probably even missing someone in there. We didn't even have a list of this. I'm just trying to pull this crap out of my head. And while all this is happening, you bring in McLaughlin, the Bama center, who was the second-rated interior lineman, and out of the portal, help solidify that a little bit, give you some depth inside. I know everybody's going to look at that last snap in the game, whatever. So you got him there, but you got some depth inside. And then also you brought in Quinshon Junkins from Ole Miss, like, who was a two-time first-team All-SEC running back.
Right.
Over 1,500 yards, all this crap. Like, there's some metrics where it's like literally, him and Herschel Walker are the only guys to do some of these things. And you're thinking, well, if he's coming in naturally, well, that doesn't, Trey's going to be leaving. But no, Trey's going to come back. Like, we can split the load. Junkins was carrying the ball 250 times a year. He's like, I don't need to do that. We can split this and figure it out. Probably still a little more portal work to do as far as maybe you get another offensive lineman, maybe you bring in a linebacker, but you want tough guys. You want guys that are the right fit.
Yep.
And all of a sudden now, people are saying the culture is bad at Ohio State. You don't have, oh, by the way, JT Tuimoloau came back too. Forgot to throw that in there. You don't get this many guys returning, Schlegs, if the culture is an issue.
They obviously like their coach. Because if they didn't, they would leave.
And each other.
Yeah. You know, and you're absolutely right, Bob. I mean, let's go back to why I transferred. Why did I come to Ohio State? I came to Ohio State because I met, you know,
got you super drunk and took you to
so
get
first off, you guys
didn't
even know. I had to show you guys. They're like, oh, you guys, hey, I'll go get some pictures. And then I gave you guys some bottles and I just took both of them. Anyways, I don't want to digress from this. But the fact is this, like, you have some of these guys from the portal, they're coming in, they're looking at the guys on our team, like, collectively, hey, we're gonna go do this thing. We're gonna go win a national championship. It starts with us. We're the veteran guys. We want other guys to be there. Competition breeds excellence. Let's sharpen each other and let's go lay it out there. Let's go win this thing. That's what it is. They obviously care about their coach. They obviously, you know, care about the strength and conditioning. They care. They love the way that they're getting treated by the trainers and the support staff and all those things. And they love each other. And they want to go do it together and win a national championship. So I think that Ohio State actually, with all the noise and all the crap that we heard earlier on in this offseason, is actually sitting quite well. And, you know, and then even in Howard, you know, he's a quarterback, but he's also coming in with a lot of experience that bodes well for that room. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I forgot. That's what I forgot was the quarterback Schlegs.
Right. So, but I mean, again, like, you don't have to remember everything, Bob. That's why I'm there. It says with Anthony Schlegel. So I just brought that one nugget. But again, everybody in the room, every single unit, competitive excellence. And yeah, I think in the portal, you probably need some D-line depth. You know, and you said, maybe do we bring in one more offensive lineman or a linebacker? Sure. But they have a lot of other guys that are also freshmen that are coming in to this class that are going to want to compete. And when you get them all in there, whether they leave or they stay, they're either leaving because they want to get more playing time, or they just realize that I can't play at Ohio State. When we talk about the 10-8-10, it's now, as opposed to us trying to remove them from the program because it's so hard that you could do way back in the day. It's just automatic. It's roster turnover. The hardest thing with this is the roster management at the end of the year. That's a whole NIL thing. We should probably do an entire segment of that. But I'm super excited because you have these veteran guys coming back that understand. And if they need to understand a little bit more, this is why this type of generation, Bob, it's different in strength and conditioning. You always have to evolve. In coaching, you have to evolve. Back in the day, it was what, when, and why, right? Was what do you want me to do? I'm just going, right? And then when, now, and then why, but now it's the why, and then the what, then the when. So you have to educate, but these guys are all coming back because of, you know, the love they have for each other and their coaches in this university. So super pumped up about it.
Absolutely. And it's big. They probably have the most talented roster, I think, in college football. They're on a short list with maybe them, one other two teams, and they're veteran. That's the thing. So you get to integrate some of these young guys that have come in, who have played in high school, or maybe some of the guys who were freshmen didn't play a lot last year. They're going to be battling and vying for spots. But you have a lot of veteran players there as well, who have really grinded and have gotten it done to a large part, but they haven't won a Big Ten championship. They haven't beat Michigan. And so to see those guys returning to be a part of that, that's massive. It's really massive.
It's only going to work, Bob, though. And again, I'm not there. I don't know. But you and I both know this. When we went from the 2004 to the 2005, it's up to these veterans
to lead
and uphold the standard. And the standard is the standard at Ohio State. And that's beating Michigan, and that's winning a natty. That's it. And all the things that we got to go through to get there, the trials, the tribulations, the adversity, whatever it is that they throw at us, we're going to do it together. And we're going to bring you along with us, because we're going to need you to perform, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior. In some game, we're going to need you. So we're going to hold you accountable, and we're going to push you, and we're going to bring you along. That's what they have to do. It's great that they're back, but now it's time for them to do that.
but come back and mean business. One guy, he's not coming back next year, and he might be the greatest of all time. What it means for the Buckeyes, his school, college football at large. We'll get into all that next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and we've covered a lot of ground here. Schlegs, Buckeyes returning. We'll talk a little bit about coaching, even some changes on the Ohio State coaching staff and what that looks like. But there is a gaping hole now in college football with the retirement of Nick Saban. 7 national titles, 6 at Alabama, 1 at LSU. Coached at Michigan State before that. Most Buckeye fans that are older will remember his infamous game there in 1998 when he defeated the Buckeyes and helped undo their quest to a national championship with one of the most talented teams in my mind ever to suit up for the Bucks. So Nick Saban gone. With that, he has a team that was in the Final Four in the CFP, very talented roster. There's a safety there by the name of, I believe, Caleb Towns, if I'm not mistaken, that everybody is Ohio State recruited earlier, and I think they would love to maybe get him should he get in the portal because Bama guys, Schlegs, they have 30 days now, and Washington to be able to get in the portal because their coaches left, retired, or changed positions. So Bama leaves with Nick Saban. Kalen DeBoer comes in from Washington to take over. It was done in less than 50, 60 hours. It wasn't even 3 days. They're able to get that done. But before we move on to Kalen, what is Nick Saban, when you see that, his impact on college football, the game of football at large, how does that hit you?
I mean, he's just like Belichick. He's the greatest of all time of coaching. It's done by how you win championships, and he's obviously won 7. He found it when he went to Alabama. Just he understood what it was in the strength and conditioning. He tied all the pieces together. That's really what he did, and that everybody's been trying to replicate that blueprint of strength conditioning and hard coaching and hard conversations and trials and adversity within the training. But to also, the one thing that probably impresses me the most about Nick Saban is the amount of turnover that he's always had on his staff.
Yeah.
We talk about continuity, but to be able to win 6 championships when every single year you're having a coordinator of some capacity leave and go take a head job somewhere else, that in and of itself just alludes to the greatness that he is. And then you see what Kirby Smart is able to do at Georgia, which he learned a lot of from Saban. He's had a tremendous impact on the game. He's taken Alabama to where they were. I mean, people can't even remember when Alabama was in Alabama.
They weren't good. When we were in school,
no, they were not. They were not
good.
They were not good. So, and just, you love hearing the clips about how he's trying to educate and teach the young men that are on his team. And I really respect that because they all need to hear it. We sometimes, the adults, need to hear it. So he lays it out there for the media. But now you have a guy in Kalen DeBoer who doesn't have a lot of Division I experience now filling in those shoes. And then I will say this about him. I mean, the guy is, 3 NAIA national championships. He was the coach of the year in the Pac-12 the last 2 years. He won at Fresno State. He's won at Washington. But I think they made this hire because of what I've heard, around football, is that he's just great developing young men. Yeah. And in this age now, we've seen that shift of, even from the days, right? Like college coaches learn from their coaches that develop them, right? And they take that in that blueprint. And Saban has evolved, right, over the years to where he is now. He's not the same guy he was 10 years ago, nor should any of us be. But then you have a guy in Kalen DeBoer who I've heard has great rapport and develops young men at a high level. And I think that's why they went this route with him.
Yeah, it makes sense. He's an established winner. He went to Washington, had a lot of success there. Now he played for a national championship last year, Schlegs. I mean, what do you want to? I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Yeah, I wouldn't say I was surprised because Washington entering the Big Ten, they've got a lot of resources, a lot of opportunity, but they'll have a full roster renovation. I mean, they lost a lot of guys, and so I understand why he did this. He's going to have an open checkbook for himself, his coaches, to be able to build his staff, all the things you need at Alabama. He's going to be given that, but with that, like I said, the roster, can be poached. It can be picked over now. Guys will be getting in the portal. And it feels like there's this gap because every year it was like Alabama. Anytime you got in the national championship conversation, it was always Alabama because of Nick Saban. And
Right.
Kirby, I think, has done that a little bit at Georgia here the last couple of years. You know, there was a point where Dabo had that going at Clemson, but like Nick sustained that Schlegs for 16 years. Like
Yes.
it's not even, it doesn't even make sense. It's almost incomprehensible how you can play, coach, and recruit and develop at that high of a level for that long. Like you said, with your coaches leaving all the time,
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's the
all
point.
the time. Everybody's leaving. And then, by the way, too, like I'm curious, all the fired coaches, where they're going to go now because they had like, it was like the Betty Ford clinic. You know, you'd go there if you'd gotten fired, you had issues. He'd bring in Lane Kiffin, bring in Sark, Bill O'Brien, all these guys. It was like the island of misfit toys. You'd go there, and then you know what? He'd polish you up,
Yeah.
he'd finish you off, Schlegs, and then he'd send you out onto your way.
You're a
Like a
good
little
finisher,
bird,
Bob.
go fly to go win titles again.
You know what though? Like, here's the other thing about bringing those type of guys in. Nick Saban's not. I mean, as a leader, Nick Saban is not afraid to go out and get thought leaders that challenge. He wants people to. Probably why he was
Oh,
so great is
you
that
watch
he had
his
a room
coaches
full of
fight with him.
people.
You know
Right,
that he
but
wants independent thinkers.
that's what he wants. He's not. He doesn't want yes men. He wants people that see things through a different prism, so that that way when he plants the flag and go, everybody knows why because we've already discussed it, right? But at the end of the day, that's his system. That's what made him great. And you see how all the moving parts have been able, and Stark is now at Texas and all that. That's what you want. That's leadership in a nutshell.
My two favorite Nick Saban, like Sabanisms, if you will. Um, he starts talking about, you know, different types of people. He's like, media high achievers hate
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
mediocrity and people that are complacent with that. And mediocrity, they hate high achievers
That's right.
because they're always going to be pushing, and one will never accept the other. So you got to get everybody on the bus and get everybody going in the right direction. Make sure they're the right people. And then the last piece, the second one is average players want to be left alone. Good players want to be coached. Great players want to be told the truth. And that hits me more than anything because being self-aware and understanding where you're good and where you're not, most notably, it hurts for players.
Yep.
It stings when someone says you're not this or you're not that. But the only way to get better at it and to improve is to identify it and then be in the solutions business of trying to solve it. So Nick Saban, there will be a huge, huge hole with him in college football now, but I know he'll still be involved in some way. Coming up, Schlegs, it's the favorite segment we do every week. It's your questions. It's Tailgate Talk. Questions from the listeners coming at you next on the Bobby Carpenter Show with my man, Anthony Schlegel. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and it is our favorite time each and every week. It's time we answer your questions. It's Tailgate Talk. And Schlegs, we're going to fire away our first question from Turkey Boy. A lot of guys returning to Ohio State. He wants to know, is NIL responsible for all of these OSU players returning for another year?
I hate NIL, guys. I think I could go into a whole ramble of this, Bob. I'm not going to do it right here, but I think it's part of it. Can't deny it. But I also think more than just the NIL and the money. I think it's the guys around them and wanting to do it. And you know, I think it's three components. I think it's NIL. I think it's draft status, where they are now versus where they could be with another year of development. And I think it's their teammates and coaches. And I put teammates above coaches because you play for your brother, but the coaches have something to do with it. And I think collectively, all three of those things bode, come together as to why they stayed, Bob.
I think there's a part of it. Yeah, NIL is a component. But I think there's a lot of unfinished business, and the coaches, the players, like you said, it's not just one thing.
No,
it's guys. If it's NIL, there was guys that could have went and got NIL money more other
significantly
places.
more.
Yeah, so you go to another team, you want to finish up your career there like that. Probably not, and that's why I think these guys all leaned in. They want to get it right. Chuck Silva's asking the question, Schlegs, why is James Laurinaitis not promoted on the staff yet? Get that man a paid position. I think that second part is more of a statement than a question. And here's where we can kind of get into some of the staff stuff that's going on.
I mean, I just look at it this way. who are the best recruiters right now on the staff. There's a guy by the name of Brian Hartline, played at Ohio State, Buckeye, and there's a guy by the name of Tim Walton, played at Ohio State, Buckeye. And if you look at the secondary and what he's been able to do, and you look at what Brian's been able to do in that room, I know another Buckeye that's in the building, and his name is James Laurinaitis. So I would love to see James on the road. And when you can go on the road, that means you have a paid position. You're an accounted for coach on the field. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So that is a fantastic question. And hopefully that gets done soon.
I think even right now with some of the stuff that's happened, because as we mentioned, Parker Fleming will not be returning. Perry Aliano is gone. There's probably some other moves that are going to be made. I think James might even have like a temporary ability to recruit since they don't have a full 10 that he can be designated to get out there and do it. So that will help. I think there's a good chance James does get on as a paid staff member this year. I just know Ryan's trying to juggle it because you have to, you're limited to 10. So how does that all work? And how do you build the offense and defense and split some of those coaches from different rooms? Patriot 3029 is asking, what are you expecting from the OC position? And then kind of with that, they're talking about, there's another question. Are you surprised as me, Justin Fry, and the quarterback situation, the quarterback room hasn't been addressed? I think that I don't think Corey Dennis will probably be back as the quarterback's coach. I think that's where they're going to go with hiring a real an OC to call plays and a quarterback's coach to coach a position room. I've heard some rumblings. I've got some rumors that I think that there could be a real big time potential coach out there that could be coming for that. It's not set in stone, and I'm not going to necessarily throw it out there because I don't necessarily think it's appropriate yet, but I think there's a lot of movement where people would be really happy because I think one of the things you need is someone, who can call plays, but someone who's been a head coach, who's a veteran coach, who can also help Ryan and be someone who can lean on, and just help in some of these decision-making factors. So I think that that's there. I like what Justin Fry is doing at Ohio State Schlegs. The offensive line to me is not a function of his ability or inability to coach right now with what you saw against Missouri. Before he got here, there was 2 recruiting cycles where you really didn't get the depth of players that you needed. And you can talk about this. Offensive line is the hardest position to hit on in recruiting. But then even when you do, it's the lead time to get them on the field because of the physical development that needs to take place. It's not something you just turn over. So I think that you're dealing with a little bit of that right now from before he got here, him inheriting some problems.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's all going to be predicated upon the OC. What do they like to do, and how does he gel with the people that he has currently on staff, and who are the people that he's comfortable with that he would potentially like to bring with him? Because if you're allowing him to have that control, you don't want to pigeonhole in them and then say, "Hey, guess what, man? You were 87th in the country last year in rushing. Oh, by the way, you have to keep these guys," or hey, this is where you were in passing, and you got to keep these guys. Like, you got to give him some autonomy to be able to do what he wants to do, and also simultaneously continue to develop Brian Hartline and go out there and win. And can Ryan lean on somebody like that? Sure, but it really allows what we talked about the last time in making these changes as he did a couple of years prior and bringing Knowles in. Now by having an OC, it allows you to work on the business and not in the business and truly be a head coach, which now with NIL and everything that's transpiring in the portal, there's a lot of moving parts, and you can't be there working in the room day in and day out and also do those things. We all only have so much bandwidth. So that's where there will be some turnover and stuff with the OC, because in order for somebody like that to come here, you have to give him some autonomy to do what he has to do to accomplish the mission.
Yeah, and I think that if you do that,
that's fair.
He's going to probably have some say in maybe who he might also want on his offensive staff. And so I think that's why there's still some ambiguity, maybe a little bit of uncertainty with potentially how that offensive staff could look. One more question here, Schlegs, coming from J.R. Bach. What position would you like to see the Buckeyes address in the portal? I feel we're a solid right tackle away from this offense potentially being a juggernaut. And, I alluded to a little earlier in the show. I think that there's probably the 2 positions they want to get a little more depth at is probably linebacker and offensive line. And they want to make sure it's the right culture fit. And in those positions, you want to make sure that there's an element of toughness. Like, you don't want to bring guys that, hey, he's a great athlete, he's all this, he's all that. Like, the first thing, hey, is the guy tough? Is he going to be a great culture fit? Will he
Yes.
be, a thermostat that is helping set the temperature in the room as opposed to a thermometer? And I think that's ultimately what they need.
Now you hit the nail on the head there, Bob. I mean, now you're at the point where you want the. I will say this: with everybody coming back and knowing what they want to do from a veteran class, you want that type of guy that wants to come in and be a part of that and help elevate it. You don't need anybody. Like if they're like, if you go and we all talk, like we all know everybody in the profession, it's just what it is. And you get a read on a kid and he just doesn't like to train and it's hard to extract greatness from him and he's stiff as a wedding, whatever, and all these things. Like, no, do not take him simply for the fact of taking him, because he's going to bring the room down and he's going to force that leader to try to do that because he's already what he is. Like, go find the guys that mesh, that bring in that element of toughness, which is the one thing that we wanted, that we saw in the national championship game.
Exactly. I wish we could find, if every portal guy we got was like Davidson Igbenuson, I'd be all in. But the problem is they're not. A lot of guys are bringing in some problems with them, and you have to make certain what you're getting there. So coming up, we'll wrap up the show. Some final parting thoughts from Schlegs and I as we finish up the Bobby Carpenter Show on the Big Play Network. All right, welcome back in the final segment of the Bobby Carpenter Show here. And one of the things we haven't touched on, we have a new safeties coach as well, Matt Guerrieri, coming in, returning to Ohio State. He was coaching in the secondary at Indiana in the Code DC. He's very familiar with Jim Knowles' defense, Schlegs, understands it a lot. Lathan Ransom had some incredibly kind and impactful words when talking about Matt Guerrieri, how he helped him teach him this entire defense and everything before he left. So having a guy back there with that type of understanding to now pair with Tim Walton feels really, really good about this defense.
Yeah, somebody that comes in, one, he had the responsibility as a co-D coordinator, and he also knows the system, and he has a good rapport with the veterans in the room. Is critical because they got his back. And, they're going to say to the young guys, yeah, he's coaching you hard because this is what you need, and like, just watch me. It just brings another pair of eyes, but more importantly, he understands the system, and the guys love him in the room. So that's what you want, and it should definitely help with the recruiting.
Yeah, it'll be big. He knows what's going on. The thing is, this secondary, or this defense, it's a safety-driven defense, so you need to have someone who knows and can coach and communicate incredibly well on the back end. Lathan Ransom, obviously a veteran. Joshua Proctor was a veteran, but he's gone. Sonny Styles started and played this year. Decent chance that Sonny will be moving to linebacker. I think that's a hope. Maybe get him down there with Cody Simon. I'd give you some, hopefully some freedom, maybe move CJ Hicks around a little bit, maybe get him rushing a little more, utilize some of his abilities and what he can do. But very, very excited with what has happened over the last couple of weeks. I know that that game on the 29th, it was kind of a shot to the chest, but as we're kind of 2 weeks here into January, you feel a lot better now, Schlegs, about where everything is going and where this team is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel great. I feel great where they're going, where they're headed. And I think the kids are back. They want to win. Their coaches want to win. And I can't wait for the Bucks in 24.
Yeah, it's exciting. And the work's going to start here soon. They're going to be starting this week, getting into those winter workouts and diving into where you're going to be proven. So thank you for tuning in. Stay with us, subscribe, like us on YouTube, and thank you for watching this edition of the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on the Big Play Network.